So this movie is very interesting because on the one hand, while you're watching it, you feel very engaged. It's very interesting, and on the other hand, you never can shake the feeling that there's something missing. And I think it's come down to the character or the actors, which I'm not well versed enough to say if it's a problem with the character or the actor, or it's a combination of both. But when you look at Ben Mendelsohn, who plays the FBI lead investigator in this movie, it's a very complete character. Like, he makes sense in his world. His struggle makes sense to me while you're watching it. So he's very interesting. Then we have the suspect, played by Ralph Ineson. I think that's how you pronounce it, which most people will probably know from Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Chernobyl. The guy comes around. He's also a very interesting and complete character. You don't see much of him, but what you see is very intense and very interesting, and he just makes sense. While the lead character is a bit incomplete. Like, the idea is not bad, but there's something missing. I don't know if it's like a scene that explains a bit more, or if it's an interaction that doesn't happen. I don't know what it is, but when you watch it, you see where they try to go with the character, but it's a bit incomplete. Like, there's something missing, and it's hard to point out what it is. But overall, it's an interesting movie. The trailer is a bit misleading. Like, I watched it afterwards. Like, this is not really a police chases a killer movie. Like, that happens, but it's very subtle. Like, they are mostly standing around. Like, there's no clue finding and putting clues together. In this movie, there's basically one big clue at the end, and then they find him. And that's probably not a spoiler, given the fact that in most movies they find the killer at the end. But there are some interesting things in here. There are some questionable decisions, like in the beginning, when the police, like the SWAT team and the fire brigade, storm a burning building with the suspect in it at the same time. I'm not sure that would happen. Like, you won't chase a suspect into a burning building, and you will not let police or firefighters in without securing the building. I'm not sure how this works, but it's a bit strange. But overall, it's a very interesting movie. Like, it's better than I expected. The finding of the motive of the suspect is very interesting. Like, it's not the normal cliche, I want to kill people, I hate people, yada yada yada, I'm a terrorist, whatever you have. It's a bit more interesting. The end is a bit cliche for me. Like, it's what you expect from a movie like this. But in between, there's a bit of a commentary, I feel like, or maybe it's just because I'm not an American, on what's happening in the States for the last couple of years. Like, you have this incredible, brutal shootout with a lot of people dying, and then they reference a real live shooting that happens, which has much more casualty than this one. And in the movie, you see it and you think this is horrible, and then they mention a real live shooting that actually happens, which has double or even more victims in it, and you think, why? How can this happen all the time? So I'm not sure if they try to comment on that, but for me, as a non-American, that kind of seems bizarre. Like, when fictional acts of violence, like over-the-top acts of violence, pale in comparison to what really happens in the States, and it's just ridiculous. Overall, I would say this movie is worth a watch on demand. Maybe not in the cinema, although right now there is not much in the cinema that is worth watching. But if you can watch this movie on a streaming service, you should. It is interesting enough. Maybe you can point out what exactly is missing, but overall it is very interesting.